Good morning, everyone. It's January 7th, 2019. Trump is a Pied Piper for the NewWorldOrder.com. This is a fairly long article, so, bear with me. I think I'm going to cover the whole thing here. It's a pretty good article with many good points. So, of course, I'm biased because I don't like politicians in any way, any of them. So, in my last article, the Fed is a suicide bomber with a deeper agenda. I explored and dismantled recent propaganda surrounding the Federal Reserve's tightening actions, including the propaganda that Jerome Powell is some kind of rogue central banker who is rebalancing the system for the good of the nation. To summarize the points made in that article, the Fed deliberately created the everything bubble so that it could be deliberately imploded at the proper time. In other words, the crash we have been waiting or witnessing so far during the final quarter of 2018 and continuing into 2019 is a controlled demolition of the economy. Jerome Powell is not some rebel going against the easy money dictates of the Fed. Jerome Powell is playing the role that has been given to him. Ben Bernanke and Janet Yellen's job was to inflate the bubble. Jerome Powell's job is to crash the bubble. This is a tactic used by the Fed and the globalists that have run it for over 100 years. Conjure up a debt bubble, deflate the debt bubble, cause a crisis, siphon up hard assets for pennies on the dollar, use the panic to gain more power and centralization, introduce new control measures while everyone is distracted, rinse and repeat. The process of controlled demolition needs a considerable distraction so that the central banks and the globalists ultimately avoid blame for the painful consequences of the event. Enter Donald Trump and the false Trump versus globalist paradigm. As I mentioned last week, the Fed is only one side of the equation for the crash. Trump is the other side. Confidence games are highly varied affairs. They can be extremely simple and often obvious to everyone but the most inept and unobservant, or they can be highly complex with many moving parts of deceit combined into a single elaboration or elaborate con machine. It is important to understand that confidence games are just a means to steal money or valuables from unwitting people. They are also a vital part of economic manipulation, government dominance, and warfare in general. Almost all mainstream economic authorities, politicians, military technicians, and covert operatives are con men in one way or another. With the exception of military tacticians acting in defense against an aggressor, con men are predominantly sociopaths. In order to carry out a grift against innocent people, an extreme lack of empathy is required. Understanding the mind and motivations of sociopaths and narcissists, sociopaths make it possible to identify them faster and allow us to see their con games ahead of time. In terms of social control, elitist con men are highly preoccupied with preventing spontaneous organization of rebellion. But this does not always involve the outright crushing of dissent. Instead, the elites prefer to use co-option and misdirection to lure rebellious movements to focus on the wrong enemy or to trust the wrong leadership. Now, this is why you can't have anyone infiltrating your groups. I am often reminded of the inflation of the Tea Party movement by neoconservatives in the years after the 2008 election. Neo-con-men exploited the desire among Tea Party activists for mainstream legitimacy and more widespread media coverage. They gave the activists what they wanted by injecting their own political puppets into the movement. It didn't take long for the Tea Party to abandon its initial roots in individual sovereignty in the Ron Paul campaign and adopt a decidedly statist tone. The smart people left the movement early and went on to launch their own efforts, but the goal of the establishment had been accomplished. The grassroots organized threat of the Tea Party was no more. That said, the principles of conservative economics, small government, and personal liberty remain entrenched in the American psyche to continue to grow. These ideals have a life of their own and almost seem to act autonomously at times from any particular group or leader. The single most important dynamo behind the rise of sovereignty activism has actually been the liberty media, or what some might call the alternative media. This group of people has been working tirelessly for years to inform the masses on the real news and data behind global events. Over time, we have earned the trust of millions based on honest reporting and accurate predictions. It was only a matter of time before the establishment attempted to co-opt us as well. I'm going to tell you right now, I will never speak for the government. I will never side with the government. There will be no co-opting me. I don't care how much money I am offered. I would never, ever sell out to these people. The downfall of the Tea Party was a lack of cohesive leadership. There was no one there to put a stop to the neocon infiltration. There was no one in a strong enough position to vet incoming influencers and prevent poison pills from entering the bloodstream of the movement. The problem with leadership, though, is that it denotes centralization and a bottlenecking of decisions and action. It's quite a quandary of advocates of decentralization. The most effective method for the establishment to sabotage a rebellion is to place one of their own puppets into a leadership position in that rebellion. This exploits the movement's subconscious appetite for top-down leadership. It neutralizes activists by tricking them into waiting for orders from on high instead of acting on their own individually. It makes a movement lazy and impotent. And what have I said all along about leadership, people? The con game of false leadership goes beyond this. A charismatic puppet leader can trick activists into following a path completely opposite of their fundamental ideals. They can turn the movement into something they would have originally despised. He can also take actions which are self-destructive, thereby making the movement appear insane or foolhardily by proxy. I warned of this potential dynamic with Donald Trump long before the 2016 election. In fact, I predicted that Donald Trump would win the election based on the premise that the globalists were planning a grand con to not only use Trump as a scapegoat for the crash of the everything bubble, but they had been inflating for the past 10 years, but to also use him as a Pied Piper to lure conservative movements into individual inaction, as well as being named as co-conspirator in the economic collapse that Trump was about to be involved in. In my article, Clinton versus Trump and the Co-option of the Liberty Movement, published in September of 2016, I noted, to summarize, the elites need a patsy for the breakdown of the financial system they have engineered. That patsy will not be Trump per se, but conservatives in general. Whether Donald Trump is aware of this program or not, I do not know. I have no hard evidence indicating that Trump is anti-Constitution. Then again, I don't have much evidence indicating he is pro-Constitution. All I have at present to go by is his rhetoric, and rhetoric counts for nothing. What I do know is that triggering a fiscal crisis under the watch of Trump and blaming conservatives is far more useful to the elites than triggering a crisis under Clinton and risk blame falling on international banking syndicates. The crash has now begun. In the final quarter of 2018, with housing markets, auto markets, and credit markets in steep decline, as well as stock markets trending into bear territory. In the same article, I also stated, I believe Clinton is meant to lose. If this is the case and Trump is inaugurated in January of next year, the Liberty Movement needs to ask itself if Trump is truly an obstacle for the elites or if he is an ally. The left is already salivating over the possibility that the Trump campaign will devour the Liberty Movement and turn into something recognizable. Just take a gander at this editorial from Bloomberg called "The Tea Party Meets Its Maker," which announces the death of the Tea Party at the hands of Trump. So, and I don't recall covering those articles, but I had the same opinion that Brandon has here, that exactly that Trump was meant to take the fall for the economy collapsing. And here we are, 2019, and it's all coming down. So, I don't know. You tell me what you think. What do I know? I'm just some asshole sitting in my lazy boy talking to y'all. I might not know shit. Anyway, I thought I'd share this with you. Like I said, it's quite a long article. I'm not going to cover the whole thing. You get the gist, right? I hope everyone has a great day. Until next time, kill the state, live free.